Hello friends, my name is Steve Guttenberg and I am the Audiophiliac, and it's been too long. I say it's been too long since I reviewed a Focal speaker. And when I saw they introduced this new line called Theva, which replaces the Cora line, I was like, yeah, I'm in, I want to do something. Now, the Theva No. 1, which is what I selected, is the smallest one of the line. It's the stand mount, but there's also a couple of towers, a center channel speaker, surround speaker, Dolby Atmos speaker, but I'm just focusing on this one, Theva No. 1. It's a two-way design with a 6-inch slate fiber woofer and a 1-inch inverted, I was about to say concave, an inverted aluminum magnesium tweeter. Now these drivers are designed and made in-house, and by the way, the complete speaker is made in France. You know, it's interesting, that's interesting because a lot of companies, entry-level models are made in other countries, but Focal is keeping it at the home base. The Theva line is available in 3 finishes: black, light wood, and dark wood. I have the light wood version here. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't sure whether or not this is real wood. So anyway, I checked with the company. No, it's not real wood, but it is very convincing. I suppose it's vinyl. But in any case, it's not real wood, but you'd have to look really closely to be sure. Anyway, kudos for that. Now, it's a rear ported design, and you know what that means. You've got to give it some space behind the speaker to sound its best. And it has a beautiful set of binding posts, really well built. And I've never seen them before. They're probably proprietary to Focal. But there's one catch, at least one catch for me, because I use cables that are terminated with banana plugs, and the caps that are covering the holes of the binding post, I could not get those things off. I mean, I tried for at least 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. I was trying everything, razor blades, pliers, I was doing the whole thing, could not remove them. So I found a set of cables that had spades on them, and that's how I proceeded. But I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe my set were unusually snug, but all I can say is I could not get any of them off. So just letting you know what went down during the course of this review. Now I was sitting about 7.5 feet away from the speakers. I had them just slightly towed in on 24-inch high solid steel stands. That's the name of the company, is Solid Steel. Really nice tripod type stands. As for electronics, I had a great idea for a power amp to use, and that is the Atoll IN50 Signature. And it's a great idea because it's also made in France. It's $1,200. Sweet little amplifier. I also used the Denafreps Aries DAC, and the transport, CD transport, was the Oppo BDP203. As for specifications, yeah, impedance, 8 ohms, dipping down to 4.6, which is definitely on the low side, so you've been alerted to that. And I will also tell you the most important spec of all, and that is the price. $998 a pair in all 3 finishes. First impressions were entirely positive. This is a very open, spacious sounding speaker. The mid-range is very neutral, natural, very easy to listen to. Bass is solid, clean, but it's not going to shake the room. Any stand mount speaker with a 6-inch woofer is not going to be a room shaker. Yeah, if you're into that, you're going to want to add a subwoofer. But overall impression was a very balanced, very easy to listen to design. And I mentioned in a previous review very recently about one of my favorite piano players of all time is Dick Hyman. And this recording of him playing solo recording, and he's playing Duke Ellington tunes. And I got to say, his left hand, meaning covering the lower register of the keyboard, because he's a very rhythmic player, was very solid. So I don't give the impression that this is a undernourished sounding speaker. Now the bottom end is actually pretty satisfying. But anyway, those lower keys sounded nice and full. And every now and then, Dick Hyman does this thing where he just like holds a note a little longer than you anticipate. And the way that note would hang in the air and the harmonics, it was just so beautiful, so natural, like you're hearing a concert with Dick Hyman on solo piano. It did piano very, very well, and that's a tough test for any speaker, much less a relatively small stand mount speaker. This recording comes from Reference Recordings. That's the name of the record company. I will link below in the description. And anyway, it was done by, the engineer is Keith Johnson, one of the all-time best. And he really captured Dick Hyman's rhythm. I mean, he's a very rhythmic player. You really got to move in your chair, get up and dance when you listen to this kind of music. And the Thevas were definitely doing all that really, really well. They got rhythm. Over the course of this review, I'm going to do a few speaker comparisons, but I'm going to start with this one, the Bowers & Wilkins 607 S2 Anniversary. Now this is, to be fair, or unfair, it's a much smaller speaker, and it sells for used to sell for $799 a pair. I say that because I see it's pretty heavily discounted. But anyway, on paper at least, sort of, kind of, a little bit, it's a fair comparison at least to start with. And I'm playing this Beck recording. This one I think followed Sea Change. And I actually prefer this one to Sea Change. It's kind of like Beck's doing or channeling the Moody Blues. I don't know, there's just something about the production of this record that makes me think of the Moody Blues starring Beck. But anyway, on the 607 S2, the acoustic guitars sounded too thin. It just did. But the top end on the 607 S2 is airy and spacious. That's really, really nice. But because it sounds so thin, the 607, it doesn't have any warmth or body to the sound. By comparison, certainly, the Theva sounds like a more grown-up design. It absolutely does. And that the way the Theva just opens up and just lets the sound out, as big and spacious as the B&W can sound, it doesn't really compete with the Bowers & Wilkins 607 S2 Anniversary. Then for the next contest, I brought out Buchardt S400 Mark II. Now this speaker is close enough in size to the Theva #1, but this speaker, the Buchardt, is more than double the price. And it also has a large rear passive radiator to augment the bottom end, the base of the Buchardt S400 Mark II. Now, the thing is, I will say right up front that the Buchardt is a more transparent, clearer sounding speaker. I was continuing with the Beck recording. The vocals, the layering, all that was much better on the Buchardt. But again, it's double the price. But on the other hand, there was just something about the way the Theva just opened up more. It's just that relaxed sound that is just so appealing to me. It doesn't feel like it's pushing the music out to you, which by comparison to the S400 Mark II, the S400 Mark II has that quality that it's thrusting the music forward, and the Theva is just letting it be. It's just letting it occupy the room. Before I attempted the next speaker comparison, the last speaker comparison, I swapped out the electronics. I put aside the Atoll IN50 signature, and I substituted a separate preamp power amp combination, the Pass HPA1, which is a headphone amplifier that also works as a preamp, and I matched that with a first watt J2 Class A amplifier. I believe it's 20 or 25 watts a channel. So I used that, and I'm just playing some of the same music again, and I gotta say, the sound I got out of the Theva was more palpable, more texture to it, more there-ness to it. It was less dreamy, but it was more present and clear. Yeah, there was a jump in transparency and clarity, which definitely made me feel even better about the sounds coming out of the #1s. The next music selection was this one, Pete Townshend, Ronnie Lane, Rough Mix. Now this recording, wow, this is a gorgeous recording, really, really beautiful. Definitely not done by an audiophile record company per se, but definitely an audiophile recording in its naturalness, in its more lifelike imaging, great vocals. It's a mix of acoustic tunes and electric tunes. If you've never heard this record and you're a Pete Townshend fan, I think this is his best solo record. And if you're a Pete Townshend fan mostly from The Who, and you somehow overlooked Rough Mix, check this one out. It is extraordinary. It presents a completely different side of Pete than what you get from The Who. For the next speaker comparison, I selected a very popular speaker, the KEF LS50 Meta. Now this is, again, a smaller speaker. It has a 5¼ inch full range UniQ driver. The speaker, the KEF, is $1,600 a pair. And yeah, the Theva just presented, right out of the box, was a fuller, rounder, sweeter sounding speaker. And the KEF wasn't that much far behind in terms of bass extension, but it was less full. But the KEF was more incisive, more incisive, expressive performer. With Pete and Ronnie's vocals, you could just hear them on the mic more clearly, you know, how they were putting their voice into the microphone. You just sense that with greater clarity and detail over the LS50. By how much? I don't know, by this much. It's hard to put a number on it, but it definitely was ahead in that way. But again, there's just something about the relaxed nature of the Theva that I just really, really liked. I just found it a very easy speaker to listen to. One other aspect of the LS50 Theva contest is the LS50 is a higher contrast speaker. It's a livelier sounding speaker. It has higher resolution. You hear more into the recordings, but on the other hand, it's a less forgiving speaker. The LS50 is a less forgiving speaker. So with the Theva, you can listen to harsher, more compressed, edgier, grainier recordings and not be as put off by the sound. Yeah, and that's a biggie, right? This is a very easy to listen to speaker. The Theva is. One other aspect of sound that I've tried to remember to put in almost every speaker review, and that is how well does this speaker play quietly? In other words, for late night listening, when you listen quietly, do you feel like you have to or you want to turn it up a little bit louder to get more out of the music? And I would say that the Theva is in the middle of the pack. It's average in its ability. It's not the worst, it's not the best, it's right in the middle. All right, now I'm going to do it. So Steve, what do you really think? What do you really think of the Focal Theva #1 stand mount speaker? I think this is a very easy to listen to speaker. It makes most recordings sound nicer, easier to listen to than you thought they were. That's not a bad place to be. That's a really good place to be. Because the flip side of that is the line from the movie, can you handle the truth? Do you really want the truth all the time? And depending on the kind of music you listen to, the genres, etc., maybe a lot of high-resolution speakers are maybe too much information. You know, you hear all the flaws. If you want to hear all the flaws in your recordings, no, I don't think the Theva #1 is going to be high on your list. It's not that kind of speaker. It makes things sound good. And I'm pretty happy with good. And speaking of good, yeah, really, really good. The Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. This one comes from Pierce. He has two turntables in his system. First one is a VPI HW19 with an SME5 tone arm, and the cartridge for that table is an EMT006. And that runs into a Chord Huey phono preamp. The power amplifier is a Deckware Tory Jr., and that's driving Dvor 093s. Second turntable is a Soda Sapphire with a Lint Itak arm Hana SL cartridge, and that one goes into a Shit Manny 2 phono preamp. And then there's a Leak Stereo 130, which I think is an integrated amp, and that's also used for streaming and its DAC. Anyway, thank you, Pierce. Okay, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac, and I am proud of it. And you know what else I'm proud of? The channel's coming up on its 6th anniversary in just a couple of weeks. I want to do a live stream. These things are technical challenges to me, so I get a little nervous about doing it. But anyway, I want to do it, and yeah, I'm going to try to make it happen. Anyway, if you dig the channel and you want to help support the channel in the absolute best way, you know what I'm going to say, please consider contributing to my Patreon. You can do so for a couple of bucks a month, and in the top tiers, you and I will have a conversation every single month at the beginning of the month. That's when these chats happen. I so enjoy the chats. And if you just like a video, please remember to hit the like button. It's very important to the health of this channel. And if you have yet to subscribe, as we inch closer and closer and closer to 250,000, please subscribe. And when you do, hit the notification bell so you will know every time there's a brilliant, sometimes not so brilliant episode coming up. And with that, I can say my work here is at last and finally complete. Thank you so much for watching, and I really, really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.